Hey everybody, today on the AgentXcel podcast, we have our guest Brian Allen. How you doing, Brian?
I'm doing great. What's up?
Thanks for joining me, man. So I always like to let the listeners know, where our connections are. Some people I bring on, I know, some I kind of know, and then some I have no idea who they are, right? And so I think what was interesting is I've been doing some investing in the last few years in Durant, Oklahoma, a little town, huh? And then
Durant,
so
Durant.
I Durant. So I actually knew your name because I did some research online. I've been there a few times, bought some stuff. And so I knew your name. And then I remember what a small world that I think we were in Dallas and like a hotel and like a private mastermind, probably like 25 people in there that were invited around the country. And I remember,
Florida,
oh,
Florida,
were we in Florida?
Florida. Yeah.
Okay. So I remember we were in Florida and we had like 25, 30 people in a room. We're masterminding, the market switching. I must have said something about Durant, and then you came up afterwards, and I was like, this is the 580 guy. This is the 580 realty guy. So when you came up to me, I was like, oh, this is super cool. I didn't know you were networked in in our crew. And so yeah, I've seen you around now and really like your story and what you've got going on. So I thought, man, what better? Because I actually don't know your whole backstory. And I always like to do these podcasts because I think that everybody's coming from a different spot. You got some people who come in this business who are in corporate, some that were, doing construction, some that were teachers. I'm just always trying to find people's stories and, what's made them successful. And then hopefully someone who's listening can connect with it. And like, that's their reason in 2 or 3 years they can say like, hey, that was my pivotal point. Like when I listened to that podcast, like that guy helped me change my perspective or mindset. And if he can do it, I can do it, that kind of resignation. So let's start off with just when did you get into real estate? And I think more importantly, why did you get into real estate? And like, what's that backstory?
Well, I kind of fell into real estate, and if I say that all realtors have past lives. At the time that I got into real estate, I was an executive at an ad agency, and so I was over the digital marketing. We did marketing for automotive dealerships all over the United States. So we had customers coast to coast, border to border, and what I specialized in was digital marketing and lead acquisition. And I started this in 2008. And this is a pretty good story. So in 2008, everybody remembers what happened in 2008, right?
Yeah.
And so in 2008, here I am. I'm an older uh, uh, college graduate, right? I graduated in like 2005, put my wife through college and all kinds of fun stuff. Finally land my dream job in an ad agency. A year later, the market crashes and everybody stops buying cars. So they're laying everybody off. And I remember, and I've got this hanging on my wall right here. I went to make copies like a good person. We used to make copies on a copy machine, right? And send faxes and all that good stuff. And remember, 2008, this was, Facebook was just coming out to the public. Twitter was there, but hey, who knew how to use Twitter? LinkedIn was brand new, 2005. Google just bought YouTube in 2004. I mean, Google Analytics, they purchased Urchin. So all this was brand new, it was emerging, right? I mean, we still have Flash websites for God's sakes, right? And so it was crazy, okay. And I was building websites in the on the side and everything. So here I am. I was a graphic artist, and I'm facing layoff, right? I finally got my dream job, making a not so huge salary, but I had insurance. I have 3 kids, and I was like, golly, man, fixing to get laid off. And what do I do? And I'm making a copy like a good employee, and I see this $1 million success plan, right? And my boss, the owner of the company, had went to a seminar in the 70s and hung this up over the copier, I guess hoping it's going to influence one of the employees, right? Well, it made him millions of dollars. The first thing that it says is number one, it says, crystallize your thinking. And I thought, huh. So I literally take the picture off the wall and I take it and put it on the copy machine. And I make a copy, and that exact copy is what I have framed on my wall right here. And it's just the 5 steps, the $1 million personal success plan. I taped it to my desk, and I sit there and I said, okay, how do I keep my job? Just how do I keep my job? How do I not have to go home and tell my wife that I got laid off today? Right. And I thought, well, dude, I can build some websites. That was infamous, right? If I self-liquidate myself, if I make more than my boss pays me, then he can't fire me. Genius idea. So then I get the gall to go into his office. I said, hey, I've got an idea. He goes, what's that? I said, I'm going to start building websites for car dealers and we're going to make some money. We're going to sell these websites because I can do it for next to nothing just by myself. And if I make more, I'm going to make you a deal. If I make more in 6 months than I make in a year, you got to keep me. And I said, if I don't, then I won't take any severance and I'll quit. Right. And I'll go find another job. He goes, huh, I like that. How about, what do you need from me? I said, I need your book of business. And in that moment, I became a salesman. So fast forward, I ended up making a lot of money and learning a lot of stuff about digital marketing, all self-taught. I've got Google Analytics certifications and AdWords certifications, all kinds of good stuff, because all this stuff was online and all I had to do was learn it. So I just had to have the grit to put it inside my brain and apply it to cars. Fast forward to 2014, my wife was becoming a surgical nurse and she was going to graduate. And so I was going to go back to college, actually to be an art professor. I love to draw, right? Loved to draw. I don't draw anymore, but I was becoming an art professor and I was going to go to a college, teach art, kids who wanted to draw, whatever, blah, blah, blah. To do that, I was going to have to supplement our income a little bit. Okay. So I figured when I get my real estate license, I'll sell a house here and there. What I didn't realize, and I was just going to leave digital marketing in my past. And, the goal was for people not to even realize I knew how to turn on the computer, right? One of those guys. So I get into real estate. I broke with an independent broker. I remember showing my first house and I pre-drove the route. I knew all the details. I put them all, the whole MLS, everything, square foot, history, mortgage, the whole 9 yards, right? Had everything calculated out, blah, 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 blah. Lady was pre-approved and I started showing her the houses. And it was like I put on a glove and I was like, oh my God, I cannot fit so well. This is, and I get tingles. I get little goose pimples just thinking about it. I was like, man, I'm going to do this the rest of my life. And that was it. I was sold. I was done. Right. And so they say the rest is history. So.
And so that was in around 2014, 2015?
Yeah. October 2015 is when I got my real estate license.
Okay. And so after you worked with that one client, did you go into it like full time? Was it game over there, or did you do a transition where you were like, was it like that was all you did, right?
Well, I had just like anybody, I had to teeter totter, right? Because I still needed to make some money. So I was going to college full time.
Yep.
And I got a job at the Small Business Development Centers for the state of Oklahoma. And I was their technical director and I helped assist and consult small businesses on how to implement technology, websites, CRMs, and that, transparent technology that can help improve their businesses. So I did that for about 6 months and then picked up pretty fast and was able to quit by May, June of that year and go full time.
So what'd your first year look like in real estate?
36 deals.
Okay. So you came out swinging. That's good.
Yeah. And, I remember I got my real estate license. I think it was like around the 15th of October, something like that. And independent broker, she saw my resume. She's like, okay, this is going to be good. And, she's sitting back watching and stuff. And so I already had a website built. I already had, a Zillow buy in place. I looked at the market and to take over the market and get 73% market share, I paid $270 a month. That's because nobody was doing it.
Yeah.
And most people in this area were very rural. They had a problem checking their email. So it wasn't nothing. You had a bunch of 3-page websites and stuff. So here I am, I pressed go on the A records. Boom, the day I went. 2 days later, we have a big broker calling my broker going, who is Brian Allen? Because I just hit the market just like I would for a car dealer, and even my friend who now sells with me, I remember we were sitting there playing Settlers Catan one time and he says, you're changing the way people do real estate here. And I said, well, I'm just doing it like a car dealer would do it because car dealers, dude, they don't care. They're not in the friend business. They're in the sales business, And so when we came in, we would come up and we'd buy up every position that we could in the market to where it didn't matter where they looked, you know. And so when I started real estate, all I did was instead of pointing it to a car dealer, I just pointed it to me, right? And so it's been a tool, it's been an asset, really helped me get footing quicker and pivot quicker in changing markets. So
Was your first 36 deals, would you say that was from online? Like, was it really like a marketing thing that you did? It wasn't from like friends, family, like it was primarily that way?
yeah, I mean, I've got family, but I don't have family that can afford houses. Okay. So, I mean, I come from run of the mill, fight over a dirty sock type of poor people.
Okay.
So you don't, and I've got a big family, but I didn't have any, I worked all across the country. So I didn't really have a book of business here locally. I had a small website business where I built websites and stuff like that, but mostly not local business. So I had to build that book of business. I remember being at my second brokerage, independent again, and a local girl there was a dear, dear friend of mine. I've been on mission trips with her husband and everything else. We were talking in the office one day, and she says, she was a top producer too, right? And so we would always swing about the same batting average. And she's very interconnected in the local market. And she looked at me one day and we were talking about leads and how to do this. She goes, there's a huge difference in the way that we sell. I've never seen anybody sell like you before. And I said, what are you talking about? She says, well, she says, every single one of your leads is new. And I said, okay, yeah, yeah. Cause I developed relationships. She goes, well, everybody that I'm selling to is a relationship that I've had, a connection that I've had. She's in ministry and everything else. So, and her husband used to own an insurance business. So, well, they already had connections and they were using those connections to sell houses. Well, all of mine are pre-generated. So they're all cold and I have to build that connection, and I have to build that relationship. So it's just different.
What's so cool about that though is, I mean, there's people who are getting in the business right now that will say like, hey, I'm brand new to whatever market they're in, right? Or I don't have a big network, and I'm always letting those agents know, I'm like, hey, like there's a lot of people out there that have had success that can't say that it all stemmed from like a big network. And so, I mean, for those agents out there that are listening that are like, hey, I don't have a big network or I'm new to an area, I'm always like, game on, that can be that can be an excuse or that can be a reason why you're telling a really cool story like you are 7-8 years later and how you built your book of business. And I mean, obviously you're great at your business. So then that will return into repeat and referral, I'm sure, over time. So what did that, so you went from 36 deals basically your first year then. So how'd that progress? So what did the second year, third year, and then how did that transition to like any leverage that you had around your business? And ultimately, I know you own your own, you owned your own brokerage for a while. So how did that whole transition go from adding help probably around you and hiring and then getting into your own brokerage?
Yeah. So I'll give you the progression. But the next year I did like 50 something deals, and so I'm still in an independent brokerage. I was on a 50-50 split, by the way. Once I hit 2 million, she gave me 2%. I mean, I was like,
You were
dude,
paying.
I have made it 2%, 52%.
You're on a 50-50 split on 50 deals.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, I looked at that,
that's a
looked at
huge
that,
cut, but yeah.
paid her 97 grand that year. So we'll get to that in a
Yeah.
minute.
Okay.
And then I went through some stuff and I went through to my next brokerage. Love these people to death. And that's where our mutual friend works right now. And I love them to death. And I still admire them as siblings, peers, mutual respect. But he helped me work on some head issues, right? And I remember whenever I was like, dude, I'm going to lose all my business if I move from this independent broker. If I move over from this independent broker to you, I'm going to lose all my business. And he looked at me square in the eye and he said, man, you need to realize people buy from you. People buy from you. And I said, but my advertising, he goes, advertising aside, people are choosing to buy from you because you're you, right? He said, so have some confidence. And then, I have a huge negative inner voice, and so over the next 18 to 2 months, 18 years, 18 months to 2 years, he helped me kind of work on that inner voice. And he kept on saying, just practical jokes and fun and just loving to be there and everything like that. And by the way, I'm the agent that brokers hate, because if there's a landmine, I can hit it. Okay. I like it because I learn from it and then I can recover. I'm self-healing. And so brokers don't like that because then they get in trouble too. And so I like it. But hey, now I'm on my own, so it doesn't matter. Um, he helped me work on some head issues. And so the next year in 2018, my goal was to hit 100 deals. Okay. Now, I'm going to tell you that this is a tragedy. So what I did, and this is something that all new agents need to realize, and this is what I coach my agents that come to 580 Realty team to do, is that when you start building a book of business, you always have those unsung hero moments, right? I've gotten people out of foreclosure and sold their house. Last week we closed one. The lady was getting a kidney transplant. We ended up signing same day she was supposed to get it. She got postponed, but we sold the house. So now she's got money for medical bills. We've got all these hero stories, right? And so whenever they hire me, they know that they're getting a bulldog, and I'm going to get that story done. Now, what I realized in not 2018, but in 2018, is that there's advocates in the marketplace, and so there's title companies that get behind you. There's lenders who get behind you. There's other agents who get behind you. There's customers who get behind you. And I'm not talking about asking them, hey man, can you give me a review on Zillow? That's not what I'm talking about, man. What I'm talking about is that if if somebody was ragging me out and saying, oh man, Brian is the worst, he's got a red beard and I hate have red bearded agents, right? Or this dude is just a shameless self promoter or whatever, right? Facebook trolls, you don't know what they're going to say. I could send a message to two people and say, hey man, like I'm getting ragged out on this Facebook post. They would call 10 of their friends and they would rally the troops and they would go, and then they would destroy it and say, hey man, this is what this dude did for me. And I don't know about you, but I've never seen a realtor take a 0 hit on commission just so that I could have a house. Okay. And then boom, done. And that's what I really attribute to, like 100 deals. I hit 94 deals. I had 8 pending, which is really frustrating, right? But 94 deals. I did not give myself the reward for hitting 100 deals, right? I did that this year. But 94 deals, that's pretty good, right? I did about $13 million in a rural market. Average price at that time was probably 100. And this was Durant, Oklahoma in 2018. So probably like
130?
145,
Yeah, I was gonna say
130,
probably
145. And so that's a lot of houses. I don't care who you are. And swinging for the fences. What I realized that year, though, is that I was working too hard, because I've consistently done $10 million every year since then, but I haven't done 100 deals, right? I do on average 65, 75 deals a year. What I realized is that I was working too hard. Okay. And by what I mean that is I went to Business Mastery, which is Tony Robbins. And the biggest thing is that he broke down your numbers and your goals. Where do you want to get to? And you want to be making a certain amount of money for financial freedom. And that's the goal, right? And since then, I met Nolly, which he also talks about location freedom and time freedom, which I didn't really take into consideration. One big thing for agents is that whenever you hit $100,000, you need to get an assistant. I don't care who you are. If you're not taking advantage of a transaction coordinator, talk to your broker. Like you need to figure out how to speed your system up. Talk to the title company and see how fast they can close them. Talk to your lender and see how fast they can close them. So you get these advocates in the marketplace and you say, okay, everybody's got 12 months, right? You can wake up earlier. You can wake up at 5. You got an extra 10 hours a week times 2 hours times 10 weeks, right? And so you can get an extra month of time if you start at 5 o'clock, but who's going to be making calls at 5 o'clock in the morning, right? Nobody. So you're going to sit there and you're going to play on YouTube, or you're going to try to catch up your files or whatever. But what you can do is you can talk to your title company. If your average closing time is 45 days, take that average closing time down to 30 days, right? That gives you another half again of your time. And then if you can close it in 30 days as opposed to 45 days, then you don't have to go out and sell another deal. You can just close more deals, right? You can go to your customers and your advocates, and you be sure not to only ask for a review, but ask for people. Okay, everybody knows 10 people who are buying or selling a house right now. Hey, when that conversation comes up, could you mention me? Ask for it. I asked for it right in closing. Hey, man, you know anybody who's buying or selling a house right now? Oh, yeah, Billy Bob Joe down here. He was talking about selling his house down the river bottoms. He doesn't think the trailer house is worth anything. And all the other realtors have told him the trailer house will never sell. It's like, dude, I'll sell a trailer house all day long. Oh, man, but you're Brian Allen. No, 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 no. Like, I sell houses, right? And they're like, dude, Brian's going to come sell my trailer house. It's like, hell yeah, I'm going to come sell your house. And so find those advocates and ask for the business. They'll give it to you. And so if you can take, let's say 94 deals, let's say half of those people, they give you another referral. Well, you're going to get 50, 60 deals by working, but then you're going to get another 50, 60 deals just from referrals. If you get a referral for a listing and you go to a listing appointment, how many agents are you competing against? Zero. Because your homeboy already just said, hey, Brian's the only dude to use. He's going to come pack in Google Analytics and all this stuff. They've already talked you up like a hype man. You walk in there, they're not going to interview anybody else. And you walk in and you get the deal. You show them your comps and your range for prices, and you build a relationship with it. But it's automatic. You're not competing, so you're not going to lose anything, right? So that's how I built the business all the way to here. Is just trying to focus on return.
What made you eventually start your own brokerage? So I know you started your own brokerage, and now you took your team and your brokerage, I should say, over to eXp. So how did that transition happen from going from independent brokerage to Brian saying like, hey, I want to go pull this off and have my own brokerage? That's I can see switching brokerages to other brokerages. The people who go out and say like, I want to start my own brokerage, I'm like, ooh, that's a person built differently to have that thought process. What made you go from independent brokerage to I want to own my own brokerage?
Yeah, so I'm a big Tony Robbins guy, right? And I just live and breathe his stuff, right? And so I've been to a couple of UPWs and Business Mastery, and hope to go to some other big things in the future. And I don't work for Tony Robbins. I just, I'm an advocate, right? As he would say. So we went, I went to Business Mastery in 2019. And then in Business Mastery, I decided I need to take my assistant, Lexi, my wife again, who's my business partner, my two sons who were seniors in high school, and my brother who was working doing calls for me. I took them all to UPW, and I wanted them to start feeling it, right? The jive. And I'd been by myself, but I wanted my team, my close people, and my sons especially to know that there's no ceiling, right? If you can dream it, you can do it. And UPW is a great place to do that. So I took them all to Los Angeles. Now, at that point, I was a major, like, I'm not going to start my own brokerage. I went through a God thing in 2014, and I sold a business, and I said, I'm not going to be in business for myself. And I knew that I was not supposed to be in business for myself. I knew it, right? And so, but I'm growing and growing and growing. Through that, I said, okay, well, I'm going to build a team inside this independent brokerage because I love these people so much. If I build a team, they're still prospering, I'm prospering, and so on and so forth. And I had some little metrics. I had, my commission that I needed to change. I needed to gear that up about 5%. I need to get referrals. I need to do this. And my goal was to make $500,000 that upcoming year. And if I made these little metrics, if I made these little changes, then I could do that real easy with the same amount of business that I was getting. So I was dead set on doing that. Go through Tony Robbins. I write down on the airplane coming back, I see there's this automotive shop in LA going back to the airport, not the good part of town. And it said like something like the area code. And then it said like auto mechanics, and it was in old English. I'm from the 90s, so I'm like attracted to old English. So, and tribal tattoos, right? So I'm like, oh man, dude, 90, not, it was like 912, something like whatever the area code was. And I started going on GoDaddy like a good agent. And I said, 580 Realty is like available. I'm like, cart, 580 Realty, cart. I'm like, there's no way. 580 is our area code. There's no way nobody's got this. Nobody had it all. So I'm sitting there, the plane's dinging, and I'm like, check out, check out, check out, check out, check out, right? And I bought all the domain names. And I'm like, okay. So then I wrote down on a piece of paper that I've got hanging on my wall right here too. I was like, dude, I want to do 100% commission and an open office space, right? And I want to do leads for this much money. And I have everything written down in 3 columns. I'm looking at it right now. Even drew out like a haphazard logo on the airplane. And my wife and niece were looking over at me and they were like, what's he doing over there? I'm
He's
like,
on a mission.
I'm writing it all down. And I put the date on it. It's 3/18 of 19. And then I come back and I talked to my independent broker and I said, hey man. And I'll never forget. I said, hey man, I'm gonna start a team. And he looked at me and says, nah, you ain't gonna start no team. It's like, there's no place for that here. And I was like, dude, come on, give me another nickel, give me 5% on my commission splits. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna hit these goals, dude. Man, I'm gonna knock it out of the park, dude. It's like, it's gonna be awesome, right? All bro time. He's like, no, you're not gonna do that. You're gonna go start your own brokerage. And I said, dude, I don't want to start my own brokerage, but at that time I was like, okay, well, he wants me to start my own brokerage. Prayed about it very seriously, right? And I was like, okay, this is confirmed. I need to get out on my own and start my own brokerage. He says, man, you're not made for this company. You're too big. So I was 3 times my nearest agent in that brokerage. I was the guy there at 7 o'clock in the morning. He didn't show up, And so he had built an additional spaces so he could expand a little bit. But really, I mean, really, people are coming to me for the knowledge base, and I'm going to the courses. I'm going to the broker courses. I was a broker associate at that time. So I started my own independent brokerage. Why did I go independent brokerage? I had talked to Remax. We don't have really anything in this area. So everybody is an independent brokerage, and we went in and I gave what I thought were superior splits. I wasn't able to do the 100% because if I do 100%, what am I going to run an office with, right? What am I going to buy a website with? What am I going to do all this stuff? The cool thing is that like we were really determined. And so, the first full year we were in real estate, as 580 Realty, we did $52 million, 311 transactions, which is good.
Yeah, it
okay.
is.
And that skyrocketed us to number 1 in our area. Okay. And man, if somebody's in his area, looking at those reports, that's MLS, that's all 15 counties, southeastern Oklahoma. Okay. I know that you can pull different reports and we'll fall different in the ranks. We're not competing against McGraw or, Coldwell Banker. Those are the biggies, right? We're talking about, the Bush League here. So we were ranking it. We were starting to turn some heads. People were like, man, they're really doing it. And we started picking up speed. I will tell you the biggest mistake that I made as a new independent agent or broker is that, like I love people. And so if, and this has been my whole life, right? I mean, I hug my first grade teacher every day coming in and going out. And that's just who I am, right? And so, I'm a big guy, so I got to be careful who I hug because if I'm coming up with you, my arms open, people are like, oh my God. So I make sure that people understand, like I'm a very affectionate person. We can fist pump or whatever. I like it when people are like, hey, y'all are doing something cool here. Okay, get on board with the vision. Let's come along. Well, people just started showing up, man. We started doing these numbers. We had 4 guys and then our office admin. And then the next thing I knew, we were at 10. And I'm like, where are all these people coming from, And then we were like, dude, they're coming in so fast, like if an agent vouched for them, we just brought them in, right? And we had people showing up. Unfortunately, we got a lot of like people who are really bad for culture. Okay. If you look at my TikTok videos, I talk a lot about culture because it got me in the biggest jam of my life. Seriously. I mean, we can sell. I can teach people to sell. I can teach people how to sell $10 million a year. I can acquire the leads. That's not a big deal. We can do the marketing and look pretty. But man, what's going on back home in the office? It was horrible. you know? So then things naturally progress. Our second year, which was last year, 2021, as an independent broker, we did $96 million, $96 million of some change. Goal was $80 million. I personally wanted to break $100 million because it's a nice round number, right? And our goal was to get in the top 10. We were 21st in our MLS in the state of Oklahoma, in a rural area, right? Average price tag about 237. We did 468 transactions. Okay, that's all fine and dandy. But what happened, and I'll kind of segue into this eXp story, is that um, a person that was really near and dear to me, my first protege, he was like a brother to me. I mean, absolutely. Comes to me right before our grand opening in Durant, our second office we were opening, and says, "Hey, I've got to do what's right for my family. I'm leaving." And I said, "Okay, great. You know that conversation, right?" And so it hurt my feelings, right? Because I love this guy. I really did love this guy. And I thought we would sell houses together till we were old men, but money changes people, right? And so even though he was on a split to where I wasn't even making, I mean, I was making money off of him, but he was somewhere close to 90%. And so him compared to other agents, I wasn't making the return of what it costs to run a brokerage. So here I am, and he didn't even give me the option to compete. He just says, "Hey, I'm leaving. I'm going to eXp." And I cried on the inside, you know. And so that happened. Another lady who uh, who came to me, she was in her second year. She was about to break $2 million. She broke $2 million. Was fighting an illness, a very horrible illness, you know, that starts with a C. We went through that together, and da 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 da. Because of medical bills, she left to go to eXp. And I'm like, oh my gosh, right? And at the same time, I got all this culture stuff going on, right? I got these people in my brokerage that are just like, I mean, just they're not nice people. And I'm like, oh my God, this is my team. My team is not nice. And I'm having to fix all these problems. I'm paying out the wazoo for E&O insurance, a building. Um, I've got $10,000 or whatever, advertising, trying to do all this stuff myself. And so like it is going nonstop. And I'm like, man, I've started the business before and I didn't want to grow a baby alligator again, like a business is like a baby alligator. It's real cute. You want to show your friends whenever you're little, but then when it gets bigger, I mean, you got to be careful or it'll eat you. And so here I am sitting on top of this alligator, and I'm like, dude, what have I done to myself? I love real estate and I hate coming to work. I'm the boss and I don't like my boss because I'm having to do things, and it's nothing wrong. But I mean, when you've got a kid who does rentals without your knowledge and he's standing there getting screamed at that you're going to get sued and you're the broker, it doesn't matter whether you knew about it or not. You've got to fix that. You don't want to do that. You don't want to know that your agent messed somebody over, right? And so that kid ended up leaving too. And so you're nurturing these people, adding value to their life, and it's a crap show, right? And you're like, I can't keep up. So then one day my wife and kids, we're like, hey, we're gonna go to Hobby Lobby. We're gonna buy some Christmas ornaments and stuff, do the Hobby Lobby thing. If you're not from this area, Hobby Lobby's just this big, cool store full of all this stuff that smells real nice and Christmas out the wazoo and craft stuff. And, it's even okay for guys. Okay.
Oh, we have them. Ask my wife.
Okay, good. Yes.
We have them in the big city for sure.
So you get
A
it,
lot of
right?
funds go to that store in our household.
That's right. So, so I'm standing there and I get a text message that says that one of my agents is going to be recruited by eXp. And I'm like, oh no, 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 not again. This can't happen, right? It's like I've already tried to duplicate everything that they've had. I have hundreds of thousands of dollars going into technology. I've got great splits. We were on a 60-40, and then they could, after 25,000 GCI, they could go up 5%, 5%, and they capped out at 75%. This is all agents, right? And so we have training out the wazoo, and I provide leads, right? And so here I am shooting out leads, man. I'm a good fisherman, probably the best you'll see in this area. Boom, 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 right? And they're getting leads for free, and they're building their book of business. And when I can't do something, I hand a lead. I'll go to the listing appointment with them and hand it over to the agent. All this stuff, and I'm like, golly, man, this person's going to leave. We just closed a $511,000 transaction that was supposed to be my listing. She double-ended it. You know, she split twice in one transaction, and here they are. They're fixing to leave. And so I'm not having it. I'm angry, right? I'm beyond sad. I'm done crying. And I'm like, I'm going to catfish eXp and I'm going to build a better one.
You went from sad to mad. I'm smiling because I've been there. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna cry for myself first, then I'm gonna get sad for a day, and then you turn on the switch and you're like, all right, I'm going into mad mode. That's not that's usually where some good businesses are built in that mode.
Yeah. And man, I'm a redhead, so when I get mad, you know, and you know, my grandfather's full-blood German, so I get loud, I get mad, and then I start putting my thoughts to it, like, how can I do it better? Right. And it's like, and there was nothing spiteful about it. It was just like, they've got a good business. They're taking my agents. How do I elevate my business and build a better one? Can do this.
Let me ask you this real quick. Were they leaving to a specific like team, or like, was there something about like, what was making people leave? I mean, cause it sounds like you're it was like a quaint brokerage, I should say. Like when you know the owner of the company, I mean, that's a different story than working for like a huge brokerage. What was making them leave?
Yeah, well, when my guy left, guess what he started doing? Right? He started calling all my folks.
Gotcha.
Hey, yo.
Okay.
Right. And so I'm like, God dang, you know, even though we made a gentleman's agreement that he wouldn't do that, that's not how it works out. Right. And so I like to tell everybody, you know, and I had a mentor and he told me a lot of great things. I thought they were dumb when he was telling them to me. Way back in the day, he told me how to sell. The guy who owned the ad agency that I was an executive at, I traveled the planet with that guy. And he told me one time, he says, money changes people. And I said, nah, Shelly, I'm never going to move. Right. I'm never going to change. Same with Shelly. And I love the guy. Right. And he's like a father figure to me now. He's up there with Nolly. Okay. And so he says one time, he says, money changes people. I said, no. It ain't never going to change me, Shelly. I'm always going to be Brian. Right. He goes, all right, give me $100. I said, I ain't got $100. He says, I tell you what, give me $1,000. He says, promise me $1,000 off your next paycheck. And I said, anything for you, Shelly. I'll give you $1,000 if you need $1,000. He says, now think about what you feel like inside. Are you paranoid? Did you give it just for giving? Or is it going to change our relationship if I don't pay that back? Like, why aren't you going to pay it back? He says, well, I just don't want to. Well, yeah, I'd be mad at you. I said, yeah, money changes people and there's nothing you can do. So whenever they saw the opportunity for value to have 100% commission, whenever they, you know, it didn't matter what I was pouring into them because 75, 100, that's all they were seeing. Right. And so you can technical foul that all out and stuff like that. Now, this lady, she's being recruited. So she was having the best year ever. She did like $5.2 million last year, you know? So it's fair to say I probably, off the broker splits, probably in the range of $45,000. And so as a brokerage, when you have agents, they're profit centers, right? So you support them so that they support and go out and sell, right? And so that they're successful. Their success pays the brokerage, and then we can keep on supporting them. Well, if they're not paying you, you can't support them. That's how it works. So when you're asking for higher splits from your broker, they've already figured it out. Hey, you know, how much do I need to support this agent? You know, and leads are not cheap. Okay. So anyway, so she starts getting recruited. I get mad. Like I'm fuming. I have to go sit in the car. And so wife comes out, my girls, you know, I've got 2 teenage girls. And of course, they're all like emotional people. And they're like, Are you okay? Are you okay? And I'm like, leave me alone. You know, so we go over to Target, right? They go into Target and they go, are you coming in? I was like, I can't go in there. So I sat in the car for like 45 minutes to an hour, just fuming on my phone. I started thinking, I need to learn this EXP stuff and I'm going to build it better. So I get on the EXP website and I start reading and reading and reading. And, you know, I mean, I've got a touch of ADD. And so I started obsessing over this and I started reading everything I could, started watching YouTube videos. I know that sounds dumb just coming out of my mouth, but YouTube is the greatest educator. If I would have had YouTube when I was a kid in the 80s, I would have taken over the world, you know? And so here I am learning everything. And I stumbled across videos. I remember the video. It was moving your brokerage to the eXp team model by Nolly Williams. You know, I think it's got a yellow background. Of course, Nolly with his cowboy hat on. You can't not click on that. And so I click on it and I'm like, this dude, that's hugely cynical. There is no way, no way this is ever going to work because there's no money in 100% brokerage. That's what every independent broker, there's no money in 100% brokerage. There's no way you can ever make this work. You know, all those people, you know, it's not like it's valued at $3 billion or, you know, publicly traded or anything. Those guys don't know what they're doing. They're just EXP, right? That's what I was thinking too, right? Here I am pulling $96 million a year. You know, I don't even know what eXp nationally did this year, but I know Oklahoma's doing about 250 million a quarter, right? That's pretty great. All right. So I'm going to take over this eXp thing, stumble across Nolly's video, and I pulled out the old spreadsheet and I still got it. It was on Google Drive. Started building a spreadsheet, took all my people, started building out a rev share chart. I'm like, okay, right? Well, those numbers are great because that's passive income. Well, if I would have taken the same numbers, I would have had this much stock. And I'm not a stock guy. I'm not into Bitcoin and Dogecoin and all these coins. Yeah, I'm not that guy, right? Like I graduated 52 from Colbert. I didn't get into stock until I got into eXp. Okay. And it just appeared. And now I'm like, wow, 25 grand. That's pretty dang cool. Right. And so I'm like, okay, well, there's this much stock and then there's this much rev share. And then, I've got my commission. So I said, okay, in my brain, I was like, there's three businesses here. There's three businesses. And then I said, okay, there's the business I'm in right now with commissions, right? Selling houses. Great. Then there's this next business that I'm in right now, which is independent brokerage, which there's money coming off the brokerage. So there's two businesses there. But if I were at eXp and I moved over to this platform, not only would they take all this stress and pressure and overhead and everything, man. You know, my state broker, she takes it all away. But in that, sitting in my bed, listening, my wife, she snores a little bit. Okay. So don't tell her that I told you that on the podcast. But she's sitting there snoring. It might be in the middle of the night. And I'm sitting here like there's three businesses, my commission business, my brokerage business, but eXp model is going to add another layer of business. And that's passive income. And so based off the rev share, then I make another additional income. And I'm like, okay, that ain't never going to work. Put together a spreadsheet, like this could work. No, it's never going to work. This could work. And I'm like, like red, devil, and then angel. I'm like, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. So I did that for almost 3 days. And it comes to Monday, that was like Saturday morning. We were at Hobby Lobby. Monday, I call Nolly's organization. I speak with Patty Lynn. Patty Lynn said, yeah, you need to speak with Nolly. Nolly schedules an appointment with me the next day, Tuesday at 4:00. And here I am. I'm still super skeptical. I'm like, okay, this he's going to get on here. This dude is going to sell me. He's going to have a salesman breath, and he's just, I'm a big fish and he just really wants me, and, he's not my friend and all this stuff. And we had a 30-minute appointment schedule. We ended up talking till 6:30. So 4 to 6:30. And here I am. I'm posing all my questions, and I'm a good student. So I had all these questions written out in a note. and I'm boom, 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 I'm firing at him, you know, and 2.5 hours conversation. He's standing outside a restaurant. So he says to this day that he didn't want to eat at that restaurant. I don't believe him. So I owe him a meal. But he just fired off all the answers, and he never tried to sell me on it. And he never tried to pressure me because I was waiting. You know, the minute he tries to sell me, I'm shutting this freak show down, man. I'm jumping off this call, right? I'm gonna say no, thank you. I don't want any today. You know, da 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 da. He never did that. What he did was that he knew instantly that I was hurting inside because of all of the things I was going through. I was trying to repair a culture. I didn't have any mentors to teach me how to do that. I didn't have a community that I could lean on. I was spending everything that we had trying to keep up with the Joneses, aka eXp, and everybody else who was trying to steal my agents that I trained. I trained them for 2 years, and then boom, they jumped ship, right? And used everything against me. You know, I mean, and then emotionally inside, I'm trying to deal with people leaving because that it hurts, you know. I mean, it makes you cry.
It's
And
interesting how,
so
oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I was
go
going to say,
ahead.
it's interesting to hear your YouTube story. Cause I would have to say I would say we're both pretty good businessmen. Right. And that's actually, that was my journey too was, I mean, I knew some people, but like my exploratory stage of being skeptical went there. Like
Yeah.
it's interesting how like I knew the people who were talking to me, and then I was like, I'm gonna not go to them for these questions. I'm gonna go to here. So it's always nice to hear from, I think about this from like a buyer standpoint or a seller standpoint. Like, we as realtors sometimes are always like, hey, like, why are these people thinking this way? And I'm like, hey, like, remember
Hmm.
when you're the consumer and you're trying to buy a car, or you're trying to, do this, like we're a lot of times we're behind the scenes. We want to kind of be, a little bit of information, but anonymous. And then we want a little bit more information, but anonymous. Like we don't want to be sold. We want to go through this journey, but it was like that for me. So I kind of smile when you're talking about this whole
Yeah.
YouTube thing, because I'm like, that's what I did too. And when it was a Curtis Johnson video of talking about passive income. And so it's interesting how like everybody does something, everybody's spark gets ignition. It's something, right? So mine was the
Yeah.
passive income. So when he started talking about, hey, like this is what passive income is and how hard it is to get. Well, I was already going through that journey by buying a lot of rental properties. And I
Yeah.
was thinking like, man, I gotta like sell this many homes and then put down these deposits, these down payments. And then that turns into $500 or $600 a month. And then he starts talking about what you've got to do, if you were going to build through EXP. And I was like, wait,
The
what?
same thing.
Yeah, I was like, this is the same thing. Like, it's just, I mean,
Yeah.
a different angle to it, but the same thing. So I just wanted to stop right there and say, because you said like, man, that's crazy that you were on this YouTube video. I was like, my hands raised. I'm like, nope, I've been
Yeah.
there. I mean, some important decisions have been made, and it's almost comical because you're like, wait, what? Like you were doing your research on YouTube? So it makes me think now, because we're going to start doing more on YouTube for our business. And
Yeah.
I'm like, and then sometimes I sit back, I'm like, no one's going to make a buying decision on YouTube. And I'm like, hold up. Yes, they do. Right. Like don't ever get lost in that whole people don't do that. Cause I'm like, they do. If I moved my business because of that and you did, not because of that, but it was a part of the exploratory stage, then that like people are doing this for big decisions. But sorry to cut you off. I just wanted to go back to, you aren't crazy for going to YouTube and finding a Nolly Williams video, because I've seen them.
Yeah. Oh, I'm crazy, just not for going to YouTube. So
Right.
I think, like, markets change. I think YouTube is a fantastic place. We've been getting some mega views on property listings and just organically, YouTube shorts, dude, it's just taken off, thousands and thousands of views. So, and we've been experimenting heavily on short form video and, in the recruitment realm and also in like buyer and listing realms. And I'm not really pushing out like market updates and stuff like that because I don't think short form is a place to do that.
Yeah.
But especially like, like lifestyle stuff, I think a lot of times, people see agents glamour shots, you know, and I mean, I have my glamour shot updated every year, right? But I think they make us unapproachable. Okay. like you. I mean, like you're a hot rod, you're this agent, and we talk a lot about how much we sell and this and that. Like let's talk about how we get dirty every day. Let's
Yeah.
talk about the surprises we find in houses. Let's talk about some of the circumstances that we go through. Like I put a house up last week. It was 1,600 square foot, 200,000 bucks, right? So we're at $123 a square foot. Our average is 134 for the same kind of house. Okay. And so it's completely remodeled. It's got granite, the whole 9 yards. It's a nice house. Okay. 3 bedroom, 2 bathroom, cool looking. And it's got an upstairs. Anyways, so I put it on the Facebook group and then I started getting ragged out. Right. Oh my God. This guy's trying to cheat the whole world and da 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 da. Right. And that whole thing is like the world's coming to an end. We'll never buy a house. And, I look at the guy's profile and he's like, you know, went to a smaller high school similar to me. He works at a factory here in town. He's probably pulling in $45,000 a year. Totally get a situation. I feel for him. He probably has some bad credit choices, which has put the bias in him against our industry because he can't buy a house. It doesn't matter if it's for me or not. He can't buy a house, and then another person said they bought a house for 150,000. They had to still do some repairs to it. I'm like, that's 150,000. If you got a pretty big house, you made that concession, right? You had an inspection period. So you had to make that conscious decision because you're a grown person just like me. And we both put our pants on the same way. So it's like, welcome to grown up land, right? But what I'm trying to get to is that they were approaching me from a position that, like other people that know me, they were commenting on the post going this and that, this and that, this and that. He says, I can't believe I've got to pay $250,000 for this house. I said, actually, it's 200,000. That's a 20th of $1,000,000. And then, but what's that? It's just math anyways, just the financial industry and economics doesn't matter. And then I came back and I said, it's actually, about $10 a square foot cheaper than any other house in this area. Do I have the numbers? Yeah, I got the numbers, but I'm the same old guy, like, I mean, this is how I roll around town every day. I live in the same place as you, I went to the same size school as you. And, I do the same things. I don't hunt. I don't like football, but, I do some of the similar things that you do. Right. And I think that we have to be more approachable as real estate agents. And I think that short form video is a good vehicle for that. Right. What makes Brian tick when he's not selling houses,
Yeah.
right? As a broker, as a team leader, like, how do you feel, right? And it's kind of scary to share how you feel because when I'm talking about crying inside, I'm talking about I felt like I was crying, like I was physically crying, And so you mourn these people leaving your brokerage, and they go on, and you don't hold it against them or anything like that. And then you're just left out in the cold, right? And I've never dated, but I imagine it's like being dumped whenever you're dated, right? So anyways,
When you moved over to when you moved your brokerage over from an independent brokerage to eXp, was there any did you have any fallout making that transition? Because you know what and something I want to bring up about being in a small town like you guys are is when I was there, I've been there several times, right? Because my parents live in Atoka.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, you can't have any bad days here. And I say that jokingly because I'm lost in 8 million people. Some of the biggest realtors in town, I've still never did a transaction within 17 years. They're selling 300 and 400 homes a year, and I've still never transacted with them. So that's kind of the level where you've probably transacted with every player in your little market. And so I'm always kind of joking, man, you can't have a bad day here because I've even went to eat with my realtor there when I'm there and my lender. And I feel like everywhere we go, I was like, wait, you're a little celebrity. I just go to Target in my city. I work with so many people in my area of town, and I could go months of eating out and going to a restaurant and never running into a client. So I was like, wow, you guys are really put on the spot. I feel like you would know at any time what's going on, whether your flaws, your bad days, things like that. So, but anyway, so that was just like a side note where I was like, this is a different
That's
town.
true.
So, when you made the transition and switched from an independent brokerage over to EXP, like, did you have any fallout, or was that just something that was an easy sell for everybody?
Oh no, no, that was the
Nothing easy, is it?
man. Nothing's easy, you know. And like I told you before, you know, if there's a landmine to be hit, then I hit it, right? The cool thing is that I know now, right? And so, um, uh, you know, I've had several discussions either on phone with people. You know, people have reached out to me because I'm so fresh and we are such a big brokerage that we moved over to EXP. What do I need to do? You know, there's a progression of things that are unwritten of how we need to be migrating these brokerages over to EXP. And I think it should be written, you know, I think there's a process. And what most people don't realize about EXP is that we're all one big happy family, right? And so I see you two, sometimes three times a week, you know, and we're dumping our secret sauce, you know, right there out in the Zoom group. And man, I couldn't do that as an independent broker. If somebody figured out my secret sauce, well, my God, I'd go out of business, right?
Right.
So anyway, so we're gonna go. So Nolly prayed with me, all right, on that phone call. And he prayed with me for peace and serenity. And he told me that I was loved. And I don't hear you don't hear that as a broker.
Nolly's my dude, man. When someone says they prayed with someone, I'm like, that's my guy.
Yeah. And dude, I'm not like a super Christian, you know. I mean, I've got my best friend's a preacher and all kinds of good stuff, but you know, I'm not a theologian. I've taught actually the agent that you used, you know, she was in my Sunday school like in 2004, 5, 6, something like that, whenever she was a kid. And you know, people see a broker and they say, "Oh man, he's just a rootin' tootin' broker. Oh, he's such a hypocrite." You know, like I'm a believer, you know, and it's a very very vocational, practical, you know, and I love Jesus just as much as the next man. But here's the deal: is that Nolly prayed with me, and he made sure that I knew that I was loved whenever he left the phone call. Never once asked me to come to EXP. Didn't have to. Told me that change was a gate, and that it only opens from the inside. And there's, you know, when I was ready, I would tell him, and that was it. So we migrated over. Now this was crazy. So I had a business partner, and I love the guy to death to this day. And whenever I told him, it was right before Thanksgiving last year, and he wouldn't stand still. So I told him over the phone, and I said, "Dude, I need to talk to you, dude." He's like, "I'm going out of town doing this." And I was like, "Okay, I tell you what, guy, I'm going to go to AHP." He goes, "We'll talk when I get back." And then all of Thanksgiving, this happened, right? So then we get back, and then we said, okay, well, we're going to tell some of our top producers we're going to roll this out. And so I rolled it out to two of our top producers, and they said, hey, that's a pretty good idea. I think that's good. And I said, yeah. And I said, I've got this grandbaby coming on the way. You know, at that time, was even having, I was having heart palpitations because of all the stress. I mean, every day at 2 o'clock, my office manager was measuring my blood pressure. It was off the freaking charts. I was taking medicine for it. And there's nothing I couldn't change my diet. I couldn't because it was the stress that was killing me. And I felt horrible. I was hunched over. I was not happy. It was, it affected everything, right? So we moved over, and so told the two top producers, they're like, "Oh yeah, this is cool." I even had my business partner on a three-way call with Jay Kinder, the God himself, right? And my business partner just played on his phone the whole time. So I'm like, this is not a good sign, right? My guy, my equal business partner does not want to move. So I had to navigate those waters. I ended up buying him out. He started immediately. I think even before that I said this, he had immediately started kind of navigating to position to where he could recruit our agents out. Okay. But whenever I bought him out, I set it up so it was relative to the production of every agent. So if they left, it just meant that my own
Right.
brokerage that I built was cheaper. Okay. And so, and that's just a word to the wise. Just never get a partner. Okay. Never get a partner. They're never going to work as hard as you. Right. I mean, my wife is my partner, but we're connected. Right. I mean, our souls are intertwined. So that's different. You pull a partner in, you might think that they're going to have a lot of benefit. You might think that they're going to do this. Don't get a partner. If you got a dream, you're big enough and strong enough to go get that dream by yourself, right? Just find the right resources. So we moved over. When we moved over on New Year's Eve, he had a party that he didn't invite me to. And it took us a couple months to move over. It's pretty natural with eXp. And so at that party, he knew that on January 4th, I was going to announce to the company that we were going to migrate over. And we had already made the offer on the business and agreed to a price and all this other stuff. On New Year's Eve, he had a party and that I wasn't invited to. And he kind of just recruited the whole brokerage. Right. So that kind of sucked. And like I said, money changes people. Real estate, you deal with a lot of money. That means that you get to see a lot of people's hearts. And again, you love people, but then they start doing these things, and you're just like, golly, like there's two kinds of loves, right? I mean, um, Jesus still loved Judas, right? He loved Peter too, and he was a hothead. Okay, so there's different kinds of love, and we have to understand that, especially when money's being involved. So we ended up only bringing like 8 or 9 people over out of 32. We had a land and ranch company that had 6 agents in it. They immediately jumped ship because they were not loyal at all, especially to me. Right, that was a harebrained idea my partner had. Let's get into land and ranch, and it was a pain in the butt. It was a separate brokerage that we did as a trade name. I ended up trading that to him. I didn't want any part of it. So those 6 guys, they left. Actually, I went to Fathom, which is funny because they were all dead set against not being corporate, and they go to Fathom. And then, so they leave. So that takes us down to 26 immediately. And then out of the 26, a couple people just bounced. Like they left, stopped doing real estate for a while. And then the rest went to eXp, and it was one by one. And once the 2 top producers that said they were good to go, we're talking about 5.2 million, and then an $11 million producer. They said that they were going to come to eXp. He recruited them over to him. He started another independent brokerage, which was fine. He took my marketing playbook, by the way, and just duplicated it, which I thought was really funny. And there's no rules against that, right? But come with something original, you know what I'm saying? So what I had to be okay with as an independent going to eXp, and this is what Nolly told me, is he said, if you make this move, you have to be okay with being the last man standing. You have to be okay with losing every single person. So what's it worth to you? And that is 10 tons of bricks. That's not 1 ton. That's 10 tons of bricks, because you know how I feel about my age, you know? And so once I weighed that out, I called my friend who was pastor, and I said, hey man, this is what's going on, and he says, what are you feeling? I feel like it's been confirmed, They talked about, he preached about Esau, and about how he gave away his soup, his stew, or he gave away his birthright for a bowl of stew, right? And to Jacob. And so you're like, okay, well, he gave away his birthright. What's a birthright? We're talking about all the flocks, all the land, everything, right? All the opportunity for the future. And that's what I had done, is I literally had given it away for what was right in front of me, right? Which was just whatever money I could, right? Let's do this, let's do this, let's do this. And so I had to reverse engineer that. And I said, okay, it's worth it to me. I prayed with my preacher and my friend preacher, and I was at my house, and like, let's have God confirm this. He preached about that Sunday, and I said, okay, this is what I'm going to do. And I told my wife, I said, man, this is going to be hard, probably the hardest thing I've ever done in business, and I'm not going to make any friends, And so we had like 6 or 7 that said, okay, we commit with you on that January 4th. We had a bunch of them get mad and go have a party on that weekend. So I guess the 4th was on a Wednesday. So 5th, 6th, one of them had COVID. So they all got COVID because they were having a gripe fest about me and how I was crashing and how I was going to go out of business because I couldn't handle the stress, and that I was a cowboy riding into the sunset, and that I would be out of business within 6 months. And that was kind of the narrative. We talk about small towns, right? I mean, other brokerages have meetings about us and what we're doing here because we're a leader. And so they want to know how to do it. And they do exactly what I do, is they want to look at who's doing it and obtain that success. I know because I've recruited people from those brokerages. We've had the local real estate, not commission, but the association meet about us and see what we're doing, as a board. And I'm like, that's not right. That's not ethical. But the same thing is that the name on the lips is Brian Allen, not somebody else. They're trying to figure out what we're doing. So when this happened, the narrative that my partner set out was that I was going out of business, that I was crumbling under the stress, and da-da-da-da, even though I scratched out quite a bit of money to buy my own company back then, right? And even though they said to my face, hey, guess what? We're going to be friends. We're going to do deals together, da-da-da-da, that was not their intentions. So in a small market, it was really hard because I was going back uphill again. I was left with some not like bad agents. I love the agents that stayed, but the agents that stayed, they just weren't producers. They weren't ready yet. They weren't ripe yet, right? And so I said, okay, well, I can train multi-million-dollar producers, which every single one of them has become a multi-million-dollar producer now, right? So I need to double down on my education, on what I can pour into my agents, and I need to offload all this management stuff to the state team, which is exactly how we set up our company. So now we focus on culture, right? Like, I don't even know how much money is in the bank account right now. I've got somebody who does that, right? Give me a thumb, just like a clear to close. Give me or an appraisal. Give me a thumbs up if I'm doing good. Give me a thumbs down. We need more money, right? And then I've got a chief operations officer, right? Just operations. And so he makes sure that we have stuff done. And then I focus on culture. So I bebop around and I'm like, hey man, how's your noodle? And they go, what do you mean? How's my noodles? Like, how's the home life? I know that wifey's pregnant, like how's that hanging? Da 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 da. I noticed that your calls, you're only at 17% on your calls for last week. Like, what's going on? Right. And then I can really delve into and pour into people, just like Shelley McBride poured into me all those years ago whenever I learned how to sell. Right. And so it's hard to explain how much more amazing this life is compared to last year's life.
Yeah.
You
And
know?
what are you looking for? This is probably, we'll wrap up after this, but what are you looking forward to the most in 2023?
2023?
Yeah, like when you were going into next year, I feel like everyone right now is making their goals for next year. I always like to end it right now on just like, what's the most exciting thing when you think of 2023 as far as like in the real estate space?
Yeah, the most exciting thing is I've had a dream for a long time, since Haiti, and I was going to call it Buy a Home, Build a Home. And eXp has a program called News Story, and they're building houses in Guatemala and Haiti and all these other places. It's about $6,000 to build a house. We had a call with them to where we're going to be able to roll out one document in our transactions that basically asks people to contribute and that our agents can match. Now, this is not just a 580 program, but this is a program that we're helping News Story to kind of implement, and we're going to test it this year. Our goal is to raise $3.2 million, and we're going to build 580 houses in third world countries. We're rolling that out this year. It's on our new website, 580realtyteam.com. Awesome. But the deal is that, like, when you're in Haiti and the kids can't afford underwear and you're holding a naked kid who just wants a hug, right? And that's right up my alley. So that's what we're rolling out. We put it on the website. We'll be pushing that really hard come January. We're currently back up to about 20 agents. We've got 12 that are testing before the end of the year, because January is always a big time for recruits. We should be at 32, right? By nice. January, February, which is crazy. We've done 25 million and some change with my handful of reject agents, right?
Uh-huh.
And so, man, I live in this area, man. You give me the what's that show called with the kids who are the Bears, right? And little league team, and
Oh,
you
Bad
get
News
the
Bears.
bad news
Yeah, the
Bears,
Bad
man. You
News
give me a
Bears.
bad news Bears story, dude. I can live that. I can live that every day. But what I can't do is I can't say, okay, well, we're the best, we're the best, we're the best, and have a bunch of people who are just not on board with the vision. We're going to build 500, we're $3.2 million we can give away. Who else can say that?
Yeah.
Okay. Who else can say that? All right. Nobody.
And
If
they
they're not
won't,
willing to,
and the other
if,
brokerages aren't gonna the other brokerages aren't gonna go out there and highlight that story of Brian Allen, are they? Nope.
that's right.
The guy who gives
Right.
back to the world, the community. They never
And
want
I,
to they never want to acknowledge the greatness of someone. It's always what they're doing,
yeah.
the flawed story.
Yeah. And you don't have to pay attention. You know, Gary Vee, he says, focus on building the tallest building in town, not tearing down other people's
Yeah.
buildings. That's what I do every single day. So by taking my focus and saying, okay, man, we're going to focus on our agents. We take, you know, like I'm CE certified. I'm fixing to get CE certified in Texas and in Kansas. You know, we'll have a team in Kansas, not even ours, right? Going to help them brand it. We've got people coming on in Dallas. I interviewed a person from El Paso the other day. As an independent brokerage, that would blow my mind. If I told myself that a couple years ago, I'd go, that ain't never gonna happen, man. What are we doing in El Paso? It's like we're
Right.
helping people, we're pouring into people, we're helping people grow, you know, and that's all you got to do is add value, and you'll be successful. That's it every day.
Well, there it is, man. Brian, I so appreciate your time. I never knew the story. I just knew some of it, very little of it. And I'm so thankful to just hear kind of the journey of how you went from just knocking it out of the park your first year and just going into your own brokerage to eXp. And I think it's going to be fun times ahead, man. I'm really looking forward to it. I think we got a lot that we can learn from each other. And so let's stay connected.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. So
Thanks,
it's always a
buddy.
pleasure.
Appreciate you.
All right,
Bye, man.
love you, man. Bye.